Chairman Kumar, are you aware that you called him a very credible witness, yet he's a Chinese spy?
Well, then is Hunter Biden and Joe, are they Chinese
spies?
Sir,
you called Gal Luft a very credible witness who happened to be
He's a credible witness because he worked for the same company that Hunter and Biden and Joe Biden
for the record, our chairman is saying that a Chinese spy working for the Chinese government against the United States of America is a very credible witness. I yield back.
Credible.
Do you remember how the MAGA Republicans used an actual spy from China to launder disinformation about President Biden? Take a look at the headline here. GOP House informant indicted on allegations he was an agent for China. Gail Luft, 57, charged with acting as an unregistered agent for the Chinese government, trafficking weapons and lying to federal agents. He was also a Libyan arms dealer as well. That's from NBC News. Or how about this from February 20th, 2024, that the other fake whistleblower used by MAGA Republicans, Alexander Smirnov, was a spy from Russia who was also laundering disinformation directly from Vladimir Putin to try to attack President Biden to benefit Donald Trump. Well, today, the MAGA Republicans held a hearing in the House Oversight and Accountability hearing, and you'll never guess what the hearing was called. The hearing was, well, you probably would guess. Defending America from the Chinese Communist Party's Political Warfare Part 2. I mean, quite literally what y'all did in the House Oversight Committee by using a spy from China to spread disinformation to try to topple our democracy. And then they're like, yeah, no biggie, no big deal. But fortunately, the Democrats led by Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin pushing back. Let me show you a portion right here of Jamie Raskin's opening statement where Congressman Raskin says, paradoxically, this whole thing is beyond belief because y'all relied on spies from Russia and China in this committee, which has never happened before in the history of the country. Watch Congressmember Raskin. Let's play this clip.
Welcome to our witnesses. The majority has convened a hearing on defending America from the Chinese Communist Party's political warfare. This is paradoxical because our colleagues have spent the last 18 months spreading disinformation from Alexander Smirnov that Moscow and Beijing have clearly used as political warfare against America as part of their collapsed impeachment inquiry against President Biden.
And by the way, just so you can see for yourself, remember this moment, I think this was last year when Matt Gaetz was reading into the congressional record actual propaganda from China. So in addition to laundering the disinformation from a spy of China, you have MAGA Republican leaders like Matt Gaetz reading into the congressional record propaganda from China and had to be informed of that by the witness. Watch this.
Is the Azov battalion getting access to U.S. weapons?
Not that I'm aware of, but if you have information,
I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the Global Times investigative report that that talks about training. It's from the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensics Research Lab, citing that the Azov battalion was even getting stuff as far back as 2018.
Without objection, so ordered.
Any reason to disagree with that assessment, Dr.
Is this the? I'm sorry. Is this the Global Times from China?
No, this is. Well,
that's what you read.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, would that be a reason?
As a general matter, I don't take Beijing's propaganda.
Well, no. Yeah, but just tell me if the allegation is true or false. I mean,
I don't have any evidence one way or the other. As a general matter, I don't take Beijing's propaganda at face value.
Fair enough. I would agree with that assessment. April 2022.
And Democrats turned the table during this hearing with the new group of Democrats, whether it's Jasmine Crockett, Congressmember Garcia, and others. Let me show you right here. This is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and here she talks about, here she goes, today on the Oversight Committee, my colleague from South Carolina got a little confused about which of our last two presidents heaps praise on the authoritarian leader of China every chance he gets. Hint, it's the orange one. Here, play this clip.
I think my colleague from South Carolina may have gotten confused about who said what, but these are things that Trump has said about Xi. Smart, brilliant, everything perfect. We love each other. President Xi, who's a friend of mine, who's a very, very good man. There's nobody like that. The look, the brain, the whole thing. My feeling towards you is an incredibly warm one. This doesn't sound like someone that has any intentions of being hard on China, in my opinion.
And next up is Democratic Congressmember Garcia. Watch what he had to say, calling out the MAGA Republicans for their hypocrisy. I like the fact that these pro-democracy Democrats are pushing back. Watch this.
And let's be clear about the facts. The former president spent his time in office collecting payments from China and many other countries through his businesses. He refused to divest from those businesses and broke decades of precedent. Now, we all know that the Constitution has a specific prohibition from receiving payments from foreign governments. Our committee, this committee, actually had an investigation that documented cash flowing directly from the Chinese government state-owned businesses into the businesses and pockets of the Trump family. Here is just some of that. We know that the People's Republic of China, including state-owned enterprises, sent more than $5.5 million to the Trump organization. And just to be clear, it's a minimum of $5.5 million because we only have data and a few of the Trump locations. It is likely much, much higher a number that China actually spent money and drove money into the Trump organization, of course, while Donald Trump was the president. This is unconstitutional and threatens our national security. Now, these, of course, aren't the only favors that the Trump family got from China. Just months after he took office, the Chinese government suddenly reversed long-standing policies and awarded Trump 38 new trademarks in China for industries related to restaurants and advertising. And of course, this went beyond just Donald Trump himself. In April of 2017, with Trump's White House in chaos, many people, including the Chinese government, were all trying to gain influence during this time. Ivanka Trump, who was working in the White House, got preliminary approval for 3 Chinese trademarks on the same day that Donald Trump had dinner with Xi Jinping at Mar-a-Lago. And remember, Ivanka never divested her company while she was working in the White House. Now, President Trump also overruled our own security officials in our own government and publicly promised to save jobs at a Chinese government telecom company which was facing sanctions. And the list goes on and on and on.
Back to Congresswoman Crockett here. She talks about the relationship between the Trumps and China and all of the financial benefits that the Trump family received. Here, play this clip.
But what I continue to see is that Trump seems to only care about his money. Democrats on this committee publicly released financial documents detailing how Trump received over $5.5 million from the Chinese government. Not only that, these records also showed how President Trump and his White House senior advisor daughter, Ivanka, received hundreds of trademarks by the PRC during that time. So I'm going to skip to this timeline because I want to make sure we cover this. ZTE is a China telecommunications company, which has had extremely close ties to the Chinese government, including reports showing ZTE employees entering and exiting Chinese spy facilities. Unfortunately, what we saw when we look at this timeline is that in May of 2018, China approved Ivanka's trademarks for bath mats, textiles, and baby blankets. May 7th, 2018, China approved 5 additional trademarks. May 13th, 2018, President Trump's tweets, he's instructed the Commerce Department to reverse its decision to sanction ZTE. June 7, 2018, Ivanka's company gets 3 more provisional Chinese trademark approvals the same day the Trump administration officially announces an agreement to lift the sanctions on a 7-year.
Gentlelady's time's expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Sessions from Texas.
What if you could support family farmers and reduce your environmental imprint, all while enjoying the highest quality meat on earth? When you join the Moink movement, you can. Moink delivers grass-fed and grass-finished beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, and sustainable wild-caught Alaskan salmon straight to your door. Moink farmers farm like our grandparents did, and as a result, Moink meat tastes like it should because the family farm, let's face it, does it better. And the Moink difference is a difference you can taste. Unlike the supermarket, Moink gives you total control over the quality and source of your food. You choose the meat delivered in every box, like ribeyes to chicken breast to pork chops to salmon fillets, and much more. Plus, you can cancel at any time. Moink is helping save rural America. I love it, and you will too. Join the Moink movement today. Shark Tank host Kevin O'Leary called Moink's bacon the best bacon he's ever tasted, and Ring Doorbell founder Jamie Siminoff jumped at the chance to invest in Moink. Plus, they guarantee you'll say, oink, oink, I'm just Happy I got moinked. I know I do, and you will too. Keep American farming going by signing up at moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch right now. And listeners of this show get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, but for a limited time. It's spelled MOINK. Box.com/MeidasTouch. That's moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch. By the way, it should be noted that Donald Trump has like bank accounts in China. It was discovered with millions of dollars. It should also be noted that Steve Bannon, one of the individuals who funded Steve Bannon, Miles Guo from China, has been arrested for $1 billion fraud scheme. Additionally, the Epoch Times or the Epoch Times also funded from China to the tune of massive amounts of money, and that money has been there's an indictment there as well of a massive $60+ million money laundering scheme there. Let me show you. Here's Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin goes into a little bit more detail what's going on here. Here, play this clip.
All over the world, from the autocrats in Moscow to the communist bureaucrats in mainland China to the theocrats in Saudi Arabia, the enemies of constitutional democracy and freedom seek to destabilize the American government. The tyrants of the world are targeting Joe Biden and promoting Donald Trump, who has fawningly described President Xi as a brilliant man, who has called Vladimir Putin a genius, and who has said he fell in love with Kim Jong-un. While Donald Trump has described President Xi as a very good man, China is in fact an authoritarian police state and violator of the human rights and civil liberties of hundreds of millions of people. President Xi has persecuted, incarcerated, and oppressed the Tibetans, the Uyghurs, and the people of Hong Kong and Taiwan. Xi has made common cause with his fellow tyrants, forming a no-limits alliance with Putin's Russia just a few weeks before Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Beijing maintains a defense treaty with Pyongyang and is a key ally to Kim Jong-un, a third-generation dictator and communist monarch who presides over a totalitarian dungeon for his people. At our last hearing on the CCP's political warfare, Professor Tim Snyder explained how Chinese propaganda ploys have succeeded because certain American officials, including, sadly, some members of this committee, have parroted Russian and Chinese state disinformation. In The Atlantic, Ann Applebaum describes how the CCP's political propaganda against the U.S. both undermines American faith in our own political institutions and helps to consolidate domestic repression in China. As she puts it, quote, "If people are naturally drawn to the image of human rights, to the language of democracy, to the dream of freedom, then those concepts have to be poisoned. That requires more than surveillance, more than close observation of the population, more than a political system that defends against liberal ideas. It also requires an offensive plan, a narrative that damages both the idea of democracy everywhere in the world and the tools to deliver it." Far from opposing these autocrats, Donald Trump has joined them in attacking our democracy by promoting utterly debunked claims of election fraud and orchestrating a lawless and violent campaign to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election.
And so while this is what the Democrats are talking about and coming with receipts and facts, more projection and confession from the MAGA Republicans, here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene has to say. Play this clip.
A person who abuses her position in government to meddle in democratic elections should be nowhere near public office.
Yeah, you heard her right. She actually said a person who abuses her position in the government to meddle in democratic elections should be nowhere near public office. Everything they say is projection and confession. Also, here is MAGA Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene also talking about not how we're going to help the American people, but how she wants to effectively fire Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas, she says, and not pay him, despite the fact that it was Donald Trump and her that said they were killing the bipartisan border deal because they want the American people to suffer because they think that's a winning issue for them to run on in an election. Play this clip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My amendment would effectively fire Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas as Secretary of the Homeland Security for the atrocious job that he is doing with our southern border and our overall security of our nation. Earlier this year, the House of Representatives passed my impeachment articles against Secretary Mayorkas, making him the first cabinet secretary to be impeached since 1876. If the House impeached Secretary Mayorkas, we should certainly not pay him.
Back to Democrats, Democratic Congresswoman Underwood. Here's what she has to say. Play the clip.
If my majority colleagues were sincere about addressing and ending the humanitarian crisis at the border, they would not have rejected the opportunity to even debate one of the toughest bipartisan border bills in history simply to appease the desires of those who wish to keep chaos on the border for political gain. And when the President and Secretary Mayorkas requested additional resources to secure the border, my colleagues across the aisle ignored that too, even after they demanded that we take care of our own border first before we consider providing any funding to Ukraine and our other allies.
Then want to show you this moment right here where the witness who was here to talk about serious stuff, Ms. Mary Kissel, she's being asked lots of questions about the relations with China, and watch as she's being fed these MAGA Republican lies, or they're spewing one thing after another. She's like, look, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. Can we please stick to the facts here? It's a great clip. Watch this.
I appreciate the committee's desire to keep us safe from China. However, in all honesty, I'm much more afraid of the United States government. Just look at January 6th. Over 1,450 mostly peaceful protesters have been charged with crimes. The FBI can't help but brag. The government wanted to put Julian Assange behind bars for 175 years for daring to expose government misconduct and the true nature of the United States military involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan, which was not pretty to say the least. The DOJ is attempting to send and has sent a number of peaceful pro-life protesters to jail for years, simply for voicing their beliefs that abortion is murder. Steve Bannon, Mark Meadows, John Eastman, and Jeff Clark are just four of the names targeted by the DOJ due to the crime of supporting Trump. The list of people and entities prosecuted by the DOJ, including obviously the former president, is also one that goes on, but I will not bore you again. I'm happy that the House leadership decided to investigate these atrocities on behalf of the American population, who supported Donald Trump by setting up the weaponization subcommittee run out of the Judiciary Committee. And while not dismissing China as a threat, I reiterate, I'm much more concerned about our own government's desire to imprison those who disagree with them and their actions to render the First Amendment a meaningless paper memento than I am with a country suffering from a self-imposed demographic catastrophe caused by forced abortions and the one-child policy. All this leads me to a simple question. How are we supposed to fight China when we're becoming China? I got a question for all of you. In the Twitter files, we learned the FBI pressured Twitter to remove posts from the Hunter Biden laptop information on election fraud and COVID-19 and suspend Donald Trump's Twitter account. Has the CCP engaged in similar censoring activities, Ms. Kissel?
Thank you for your question, sir. I don't think that it's accurate to compare the United States, the world's most vigorous democracy, to a totalitarian Marxist-Leninist regime that is committing crimes against humanity and genocide. I'm here today to talk about what I believe to be a nonpartisan issue, which is the extraordinarily serious threat that the United States and American citizens here and abroad face from the Chinese Communist Party.
Democratic Congresswoman Shontel Brown, play the clip.
Democrats and Republicans are clear-eyed about the critical ways in which we need to advance our national interests, politically, economically, and from a security standpoint, to be able to compete with the People's Republic of China on the world stage. The policies passed by House Democrats last Congress and implemented by the Biden-Harris administration are already working to do just that, bringing tens of thousands of good-paying manufacturing and technology sector jobs back to the United States. States. This is in part due to the legislation passed under Democratic leadership, like the CHIPS and Science Act. CHIPS and Science is an investment in American labor, the American workforce, and our economy, and ultimately our national security.
And of course, what is MAGA Mike talking about? MAGA Mike stuff. President Biden's going to be jacked up on energy drinks at the debate. Energy drinks, everybody. Here, play this clip.
Like many, I look forward to hearing Donald Trump lay out his vision for the country. It's a positive vision. It's a forward vision. He is excited. I talked to him, spent a lot of time with him last week down at Mar-a-Lago, and then on the phone over the weekend, and he's in a very good place. And I expect that you're going to see a sharp contrast between President Trump's positive agenda and Joe Biden's proven weakness. And I did a lot of media over the last several days, and everybody wants to know which Joe Biden's going to show up. And look, my summary is this: it doesn't matter if he drinks a whole gallon of energy drinks. He's not going to be able to match the acumen and the readiness of Donald Trump. And that's what we expect. Even if it's
jacked up on energy drinks, what in the world are you talking about? Finally, I want to show you this one, the CNN interview. I thought it was really, really strong with the CNN anchor Sanchez, who's been doing a great job. Here he speaks to MAGA Republican Representative Mauser, and take a look at what goes down. This is the Trump campaign Pennsylvania co-chair. Watch this.
So the idea of trying to pin it on President Trump's words, I think falls way short. So I do think the president would address it for what it was, for what the American people saw, and denounce it. And he's
talked about pardoning those folks that you were talking about being violent and that hurt a lot of Capitol Police officers and other people as well.
Right. Well, no, not violent, not people who would hurt police officers. Those who who got caught up in the riot, if you will.
He's called them political prisoners, sir.
I'm talking about the trespassers. There are some that have been.
You've heard Donald Trump differentiate between those folks? Because I have not.
Too strongly prosecuted. Okay, and we have weak prosecution on most violent crimes in my cities of Philadelphia.
You've heard Donald Trump differentiate between the folks that were there on January 6th on the Capitol, the ones that you're describing as just getting caught up in the riot, and violent rioters?
I've had private conversations with him, so certainly I have, and of course they should. Okay, if somebody's beating a police officer, and some did, okay, they're far cry different from those who basically wandered in to the Capitol, and they were wrong. But they should receive no more of a penalty than anybody else who would be.
I'm not sure there were a whole lot of folks just randomly wandering into the halls of Congress. It certainly didn't look like that from where I was standing.
Boris,
2 blocks
I was
away.
there. I saw it.
Sir, respectfully, I have to disagree with your characterization, but I do appreciate your time,
I'm not minimizing anything because it was a bad day.
Well, you're saying that these folks deserve to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The former president, is talking about pardoning the same people that attacked you and your colleagues.
Right. And you want to know what? Joe Biden dismissed. And
what does this have to do with Joe Biden? Let's talk about Donald Trump. I'm
going to explain.
Talking about pardoning people.
So I'm glad the pro-democracy community is pushing back. Let me know what you think below in the comments. Thanks for watching. Let's get to 3 million subscribers. Have a wonderful day.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.